Hi, I'm Jim D. Moore Jr. from JDM Engineering, and you're here with us at our shop in Freehold, New Jersey for another episode of This Week at JDM. We've got some really cool cars and some projects that we're working on this week again. So if you want to step out into the shop with me real quick, I'll show you what we have going on. Okay, I'm back here in our engine clean room with Matt, where we've got the new engine that's going to go in our Roush drag race car. Matt, could you tell us a little bit about this motor?
Yeah, this block started out, it's a modular 5-liter block, big bore, so this motor is 322 cubic inches. It's got our 3-valve heads on it with our new setup with the 2-valve springs. It's got custom ground comp cams in it, Mazir water pump. This is the first set of 3-valve Moroso valve covers we're going to try on this motor. If you look inside the valve cover here, you can see this is the 2-valve valve spring that we've been running in other Lightning trucks for years. We had great success with it, so we decided to start using them in all of our engines. You can see that there's a lot of clearance around the valve springs themselves. That was done by M2 machine to get the proper clearance.
Now these are the same springs that we put in my motor, correct?
Correct. Yours was the first motor we tried these in, and so far so good.
And then we're doing that so the springs will hold a higher boost pressure.
Correct.
So the valve won't float.
Correct. We've seen issues of valve float where you go to take the heads apart and the keepers are actually pounded into the valve tip itself, and you can't get the valve back out through the guide. So that was a clear indication that we needed to upgrade our spring package, and we feel that this is going to do what we needed to do.
Sounds good. Sounds real good. So this motor with the new 322 cubic inch short block, that's using our JDM 298 rotating assembly just in the Ford Racing 302 block.
Correct. Correct.
Cool. Very good. Well, this bad boy should make some serious power. I can't wait to see it on the dyno.
No doubt.
Okay, as you just saw, Matt pulled this valve cover off of our new 322 cubic inch engine. This is one of the new Moroso aluminum valve covers. We are going to be using and carrying these here on our 3-valve engines. They're a pretty fancy design. Moroso has a lot of really cool products for the S197 Mustangs that we're going to be carrying now, as we just became a dealer. Rick Moroso, he travels the NMRA series with us and actually competes in our Super Stang class. You guys can usually catch him in his red Roush charged Mustang. They put on some really cool stuff out there at the shows. They have some really awesome products for these Ford Mustangs, and check them out, or check us out on our web, where we should have the full line of Moroso products soon. Okay, we're out here in the shop with Bill Bonham's 2006 Mustang GT convertible. This car, as you can see here, we just pulled the engine out of it. His factory engine had a little bit of a problem. He had a Saleen supercharger pushing about 500 horsepower at the tires, and ended up grenading one of the pistons. It actually put a hole in the #1 cylinder in the block. So we pulled the motor out. We found a little bit of damage, a lot of damage to the engine, and a little bit of damage to the supercharger. You can see we've got it all apart here on the bench. We have the rotor packs out of the supercharger case. Some of the internal parts that had grenaded, the piston rings, smaller shrapnel pieces, found their way up into the supercharger actually after the explosion. So right now we're taking apart the supercharger to clean it out, clean the case out, make sure that there's no shavings or any shrapnel down into the case. Hopefully we get it all back together and clean enough for Bill to have it in good working condition. If not, we have a good used unit for him to replace it with. So just in case, worst possible scenario, the blower is no good, we will be able to replace it with something for him and get him back on the road again. Bill's going with the stock 2009 Mustang GT engine that we pulled out of our Roush Racing race car. We have a built 302 Ford Racing block going in that, the Boss 5-liter modular block. So we have a brand new stock engine to put into Bill's car. He just wants to get it back together. We suspect maybe a bad tank of gas or a little bit of detonation is what caused this problem. The tune that was on his car was very safe. He had ran the car for a long time like this. There shouldn't have been any reason that this problem developed, but something as simple as a bad tank of gas can certainly do this. Okay, we're out here with Carl Weiser's 2005 Mustang GT. Now, most of you guys saw this on the video last week, but here's a little update on the car now. We've got the new JDM 298 stroker motor in it with the Saleen Super Shaker supercharger. We converted them over from the Vortec blower. The car, as you can see, is strapped down on the dyno right now. We have some break-in miles that we put on the car this week. Everything went great and very smooth with the car as far as getting the break-in miles on it. Now it's time to put it on the dyno and crank out some horsepower numbers. We'd expect Carl to be in the mid 500 horsepower range through the factory automatic transmission. We did a bunch of upgrades with this car along with the supercharger and the engine, like some Cook's exhaust, an aluminum drive shaft, as well as an upgraded hardened input shaft from TCI in the transmission. With all this, like we said, Carl should be able to make around 550 horsepower for pump gas on his daily street driver.
Roush DPS supercharger. Sent him a mail order tune and he made 587 to the tire on the mail order tune. Came in for a custom dyno tune. We just let it out the door at 595 horsepower and 560 foot-pounds of torque on 16 pounds of boost. And that's on 14 degrees of timing. That's his everyday street tune.
We're here with this 2003 Mach 1 belongs to Jack Longmire. He's local here in New Jersey. He dropped it off with us last week for a set of Cook's headers to be installed. He had the headers sent out to be jet hot coated. We installed those after we was able to deliver back here. After the headers were installed, it went really smooth. We did a dyno tune. The car ended up making 318 horsepower at the tires, which is relatively good for this car just being naturally aspirated and very close to stock. All it has is an air kit, a custom tune on the dyno, and a set of long tube headers and an X-pipe. It could probably benefit from cams or an intake manifold, but as we were just talking, Jack might be considering a supercharger down the road for the car, so we got to kind of plan it out and see which direction he wants to go, but I'm sure we'll be seeing him back here. We're out here with Brian Duckett's 2007 Shelby GT500. This car came to us a couple of months ago with a hurt engine. We ended up pulling out the motor and putting a factory short block back in it. We also fitted it with the Whipple 3.4 supercharger and a couple other upgrades like Cook's exhaust, our cold air intake system with our larger mass airflow housing, and a set of the 60 pound/hour injectors. Well, once all was said and done and installed, Brian ended up making 740 rear wheel horsepower at the tires on about 22 pounds of boost. Now this is quite a bit of power for pump gas. Brian took the car back and he said it was pretty much a whole new learning curve trying to drive the car. It was not quite the same car that he had before making 550 horsepower. He would actually come up on the rev limiter really quick and hit the rev limiter every once in a while, and it actually ended up nipping a spark plug. So he brought the car up to us just because it had a little bit of a misfire. We changed the plugs, checked the compression. Everything's checking out on it now. So we're probably going to be getting the car on the dyno soon just to make sure it's still making the power. Brian might actually have to resort to finding some VP racing fuel if he wants to maintain this type of horsepower, because we really feel that 93 octane might not be enough. That might have been part of the problem with him nipping the plug, but also coming up on the rev limiter so fast, you know, it's a fuel shut off, and that could lean out the motor ever so slightly and be enough to burn up a plug by itself. We just want to play it safe because this is Brian's daily driver, and it is an investment car. He's already got some money into it, but we, we certainly don't want to see him hurt it, so we're going to probably detune it just a little bit to keep it safe. Or if he wants to, he's going to have to always run VP racing fuel mixed in with his street fuel to handle the power. Okay, that's it for our episode this week. I want to thank everybody for stopping in and watching our video again. If you have any questions about the vehicles or the parts you saw, you can give us a call anytime at 732-780-0770 or reach us on the web at www.teamjdm.com.